so strong and so all-seeing that to try and get into that shadow side is really, really hard. And so what happens is that if I'm doing my extroverted feeling, for me is my dominant, then, oh, well, this is what is important to me. Oh no, but the group's so much more important. Oh no, but this is important to me. And it just doesn't quite give space. And so when it makes space, it has to make space by pushing out. And that's what the opposing is. It's pushing out and pulling all those other functions with it.
Our experience again is, well, you've got the right function, but it's in the wrong world. Who would put it there?
I think
That's
too,
what I
this
experienced.
points out how careful we have to be about, like, I don't think the weakness at all is building the invisible bridge. To me, with way too many years of experience as an introverted intuitive now, the weakness is sharing when I shouldn't. Now that'll include what you're talking about, but it's also, as the oracle for people, Susan, I know exactly what you need to do. The maturity is knowing whether to tell you or not.
Yes.
And so it's that whole bridge of, yeah, you've got the idea, you know you're right. Maturity is knowing when to keep your mouth shut.
Yes.
And maybe in the meeting, in the public arena of everybody else, it's actually not the right moment, but actually...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If the bridge is still invisible, it's not time to speak up.
Yeah, until you've actually built some of the steps there,
That's really,
particularly for child
yeah.
course.
So this is just that we talk about, it's so easy to stereotype without the, like, what's that introverted sensing, without that beautiful example, we all fall short.
Yeah. So, sensitive to time. What is enlightenment? You already know the answer. And the phrase that Linda uses is, extroverted sensing or experiencing is what is. Introverted sensing is what was. Extroverted intuiting or brainstorming is what could be. And introverted intuiting is what will be. So there's a sense of certainty about it. And this visual, for those who use introverted intuiting, I'm very aware that sometimes it's not there yet, it's not there yet, it's not there yet. Don't try and push me. It's not there yet, it's not there yet, it's not there yet. Oh, it's coming a bit, it's coming a bit, I'm not sure, is this really what it is? And then ping, there's the complete picture. There's the complete, contextual coaching was in the middle of running a workshop actually with Alan and Viv Kelly, and just like, okay, there's the model. Had it recently with stages in team development and interaction style. It's like, oh, there's another model there too about team development. So it just is a complete picture. And then I just have to work out how to explain it to others. Now there is an activity to look at and assess the information gathering functions. We won't have time to do that. If you want to look at those on page 8 and then afterwards, or bring them back to me if there's some you're not sure of or you want to send them to me afterwards. These are also on a set of cards that you can buy on my website, and these are a great tool. Set of cards, but if we did that, we wouldn't get to the decision-making function. So are we okay to jump on to decision-making? And just to highlight, you probably know this anyway, but in your information gathering function, and I know this isn't what Jung said, this seems to work though for me and for most of the time community, that if you gather information internally as a dominant or auxiliary, then it's supported in the alternative world with the other preference. In the same way, if you use introverted intuiting, you've got extroverted sensing somewhere else there. So our personality gives us balance between sensing and intuiting the internal world and the external world. So, and the same thing will work here as we go down. All right, so let's look at the decision-making functions. So extroverted thinking or systematizing is putting logical plan into place about how to achieve the goal in the most efficient way. So if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this. Highly organized, there's often a push for closure. Angelina talked yesterday about it, was it Marquita? It's a bit quite intense really. It's about getting closure, getting organized, getting things in place. So which two types have extroverted thinking or systematizing as a dominant?
ENTJ.
Yes. And
ESTJ.
ESTJ. And as an auxiliary, it's INTJ or ISTJ. And again, we've got a mix of temperaments here. So we've got our guardian or stabilizers. And our rational theorist. And when I'm helping people to find best fit, those who say, well, I'm not sure if I'm NTJ or STJ, it's normally because they're identifying with extroverted thinking, and then we just need to go back to the information gathering function. So in which case, I would sit down with someone and say, let me just look at these two, which do you most identify with? So I use the cognitive processes, sorry, I've messed up your whole the cognitive processes in verifying best fit normally. So what's the advantages of this extroverted thinking, being able to put a logical plan in place and sequence activities to achieve goals in the external world? What's the advantage of that function?
Mapping out processes.
Oh, God.
Absolutely fun.
It is
I've got a
fabulous at
business
mapping
partner
out
who just
processes.
throws at that.
Yes, yes, and you just think, gosh, that's, and it's so smooth.
Having learning programs just sort of.
Yeah, good. Other advantages of that function?
You know where you're going, and you know where everybody else is going, just get with it.
Yeah,
Just
you know,
listen.
yeah, you know where you're going, you know where everybody else is going, just sort of get with it. And what could be the perceived disadvantages of that function?
Rigid, I suppose. Inflexible.
Inflexible,
Steamroller.
steamrolling people, particularly as a dominant, because as a dominant, you've also got the in-charge energy there. So you've got what I call a double hit on the driving things through. You've got extroverted thinking and you've got in charge, so it can be woof. And that push sometimes for premature closure, I think. And you know, most of us have learned to use this function, or we think we've learned to use this function in some size, shape or form, because that's what the world of work is, isn't it? It's, you know, you put a goal, you make your goal, you prioritize, you put your plan in place, and we've all supposedly learned how to do that. I see it a lot, though, in the social life and in home life. So I've seen it in stacking the dishwasher. Those with extroverted thinking tend to know how to stack the dishwasher, and there's absolutely no point in you stacking the dish. I have a friend whose preference is INTJ. No point in me stacking the dishwasher. She's just going to go behind me and restack it because she can do it so much more efficiently. Checklist for going around a supermarket. The sequence of, as you're walking through the supermarket, checklist to go on holiday. And I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, who needs a checklist to go on holiday? Well, guess who arrives with a small suitcase and everything that matches? And who arrives with 3 suitcases, none of which match? That would be me. Yeah. So I see it in that way. I was working with some preferences to ISTJ, and she said, I've just put a high-level spreadsheet together for our vacation in America. And I said, oh, really, Annette, can I have a look at that? Oh, you know, an hour here, 2 hours. I mean, it was, and that was just a really easy thing for her to do. Anybody else here use extroverted thinking? Yeah, so.
I identify with what you said totally.
Is it the dishwasher?
The dishwasher, the supermarket, the holiday checklist. But not an hour here and an hour there, no.
No, that's more STJ or ISTJ, I think. It's incredible to me because, you know, the rest of people go, oh, wow, that looks, you take the fun out. Well, actually, no, because it's easy and it puts the fun in.
Yeah, so once you've done it, once you've got on holiday, you've arrived, then you can relax.
Yes, and it sort of simplifies that process for you. Yeah, and we visited someone too, and I often find with it could be extroverted sensing, but I also see it with extroverted thinking, is, you know, spice racks alphabetized, towels absolutely symmetrical. I can never fold towels that way. It's just beyond me. They're always a little crooked, and so I think I see that for extroverted thinking. So we all use it. It's just where is it in our hierarchy? And so tell me why this is a nice one for extroverted thinking. What's that show?
Where's your logic?
Yes, logic in the external world. This is one of the places where I really do like to use M&Ms or Smarties in the activity, because the activity when you use M&Ms is organize these Smarties or M&Ms in a way that you can describe to others in a logical, external, objective way. So it can be color, size, markings, shapes. So it's a really good, M&Ms works beautifully for extroverted thinking. And when you've got a lot of extroverted thinking in the room, you see fabulous categories, you really do. And Sudoku, does anybody do Sudoku? Often this seems to be, those with extroverted thinking really seem to like this. Do you do?
No, I don't.
My
Maybe
daughter does.
Does she?
Yeah.
And so that's where the 3 goes. I have no idea how to do Sudoku. I can see this is my demonic in action. It's like, oh.
So that's interesting. So I really like Sudoku. It gives me something quite pleasurable.
Shuts off
I
the
do.
dynamic.
Yeah, and I think this is interesting because, you know, one of the things about the shadow side is there's a transformative element. And so actually this is a lovely way of you gently, in a fun way, using that demonic
I like
function.
to challenge myself because I think
Yes.
it is that, it's a challenge
It's a
myself.
challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, that would be your child, so that's a sort of quite a playful, challenging thing to do. Yeah. So I think it could be that you found that as a way of, that's testing that and trying out that muscle in a very safe environment, that
Yeah.
function.
Yes, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter.
Exactly, yeah, so it's not like you're trying to organise a, you know, complex checklist of logistics.
Yeah, because if it matters, then I did a logic course at university. It was a sort of distant learning thing, and I would just sit for hours and do logical evidence. Loved it.
Did you?
It was the most delightful experience. I was quite ecstatic when I did it. And it's weird.
Well, and I think it's, I mean, for this, because we can all get to learn to use all cognitive processes, and certainly, if we don't have time, but I would then say, well, you know, what's your upbringing, what's your family, because I know I had someone who definitely was really strong extroverted thinking, then I would say, well, what's your background? Oh, well, you know, father was a PhD, and they used to debate over dinner, and so something in your upbringing might well have fostered the development of that function. So that's nice.
So are you saying that Sudoku is an
Extroverted thinking.
extroverted thinking? Because I would have thought it was introverted. I'm too impatient.
Because it's-
I don't want to do it.
It's moving, it's
not-
shifting.
in there.
It's all in the external world,
Yes.
and it's this plus this equals this, so it's all external organisation.
Well, the two ENTs here, ENTJs, don't do
Don't do it.
Sudoku.
No, but my daughter
Because
does.
there could be
It's
other
so,
priorities.
Yes, exactly.
It
I
could
have
be a
time to
waste
sit
of
down.
time, I've
Yeah.
got more important.
They're too busy organising large organisations.
Yes, that's
Wow. This almost is, that wouldn't be a test though, because it's
Yeah.
like, well, and why?
Why? Because you already do this.
Yeah.
And as you, I like that, out there organising
Yeah.
big organisations.
Because I think actually that's helping me develop this part of my brain, my
Are you an
process
extroverted thinker?
that I don't.
Well, it's
do.
a child function.
yeah.
So,
So let's move on to introverted thinking or analysing, which is another often misunderstood. So introverted thinking is about taking data and using an internal categorization or logical framework. So you take something, you think, now what heading does that fit under? What category does that fit under? How can I resort that, reframe that to look at things differently? And introverted thinking is an internal mental thought process. So for instance, with the M&Ms, I'd say, what category, if you had to put M&Ms under a heading, into a category, what category would you put M&Ms into?
sweets.
Sweets? What else? Chocolate? What else?
Colourful small objects.
Colourful small objects? What else?
Food that mice seek.
Food that mice eat. What else?
Treats. Treats.
Treats. Very nice. Good. What else?
Things you can count with.
Things you can count with. Things that go in cookies. What else?
Bingo tools. Bingo tools.
Bingo tools. So what we've got is we've got a product that could fit under multiple categories. Are all those categories correct? Yes. They're just different to each other. So the thing with introverted thinking is it's a personal, logical criteria that's internal. And you might have, I see lots of arguments between people who've got introverted thinking because this fits into this heading, no, it fits into this heading. Actually, they're agreeing. They're still seeing the end, they're just disagreeing about which heading it fits under. So which two types use introverted thinking as a dominant?
INTP.
Yes.
ISTP.
ISTP, thank you. And then obviously as an auxiliary, ENTP and ESTP. And so this is used by our artisan or our improvisers, SPs, and our rationals or our theorists. And this often brings lots of good critical questioning. Introverted thinking is about getting to the root cause. Let's really dive down and think, what does that really mean? Let's go really in depth on this subject. I was president of the International Association of Psychological Type last year, and our board had an INTP, an ENTP, an ENTP, an ENTP, an INTP, and me. And I got so fed up with the introverted thinking. It's like, let's not dissect this anymore. Let's actually, and then let's really refine that thought, let's really dissect that and think about it, and then let's go into more possibilities. Let's look at other patterns and other possibilities, which I created a new term, which APT I use all the time now, called swirling. So instead of deciding what to do, oh no, it's not quite perfect, so we'll go into other possibilities. It's not quite perfect, so what?
We called it the death spiral when I was passing
Oh,
out.
did you? Drove me absolutely crazy. So, and that there is that intellectual purity though, and certainly I see a lot of ISTPs, particularly that artists and improvisers who are highly logical, will often assess as INTP or INTJ because of the logical analysis, the ability to critical question, to dissect something. Can I often have real debates here because I've got my point of view, you've got your point of view, let's really debate between the two of us. So what could be the advantage of analysing as a cognitive process? What's the advantage?
I think it's what you said, is they do get some root cause of things. It's not surfaced, it's really based on deep.
It does, it goes really, really deep, yes.
Creates order.
It creates some sort of order.
Some sort.
Order, yes, it's a different type of order from extrovert thinking, but it does.
It's
What
an
could-
improvement in things because you get to the truth of something and therefore can improve it.
Yes, you can improve because you've got to the truth of something, so you know how you can improve it. Now, what could be the perceived disadvantages?
Might never be there.
You might never get there. Maybe analysis paralysis, or that maybe overly critical questioning sometimes.
This can't be right, this can't be the answer.
Yes,
You know, so-
yes, that's right. Off we go again. Off we go. Yes. I suppose, this is one of my favourite ones, and it's probably because it's my theory. I think. So, what is enlightenment? How do you define enlightenment? We really, we've got to get right to the depths of that. Lovely. And it's really hard to find a visual. Sue uses a different visual for this. She uses to do a roller skate thing, but to me that looks too extroverted thinking. To me this is lots of questions. It's always question, question, question as a tool to go deeper. And I know
Yeah, nothing's taken on face value.
nothing's taken on face value. So let's look at the two feeling preferences. So extroverted feeling, or we call harmonizing. This is about reaching out and creating harmony, consensus in the external world. So how are people feeling? What's appropriate? How do I self-disclose to connect? How do I create a safe environment? So it's about the group and consensus and harmony. So which two types would use this as a dominant function?
ESFJ.
ESFJ and ENFJ, yeah. And as an auxiliary, it's obviously ISFJ and INFJ. And so this is used by our guardian stabilizers, or our SJs. And also our idealist catalyst. And often when people aren't quite sure of their type, they're not sure about ESFJ or ENFJ, which is quite a common confusion I see. That's often because they're identifying with the extroverted feeling or harmonizing, and so to go back to the recalling or the visioning card can be very helpful here. So what are the advantages of harmonizing? What's the advantages of that function?
Creates harmony.
It does.
Peacekeepers.
Peacekeepers, harmony,
Finds consensus.
defines consensus. I think in learning, the number one comment Derek and I get when we facilitate together, Derek has preferences for ISFJ, so we've got the dominant and the auxiliary, is people feel safe. It's a safe learning environment. Unless the in-charge goes crazy, and then it's not a safe learning environment. But what might be the perceived disadvantages of extroverted feeling or harmonizing?
What do you do with conflict?
Yes, there's a conflict element, and there's variety. Some people think extroverted feeling doesn't do well with conflict, and introverted feeling does better. I think it could be a learned behaviour though. I mean, I've got better with conflict, but it could be conflict avoiding.
I think they just take, the whole process of arriving at decisions just takes longer.
Yeah, can take longer
of the
because
need to.
let's keep,
Yeah.
let's get people to buy in, and let's get them involved, and let's feel them comfortable. And sometimes you just have to make an independent decision. Yeah, yeah. So why would this be good for extroverted feeling?
It comes back to the objective, isn't it? We've got to do everything to benefit everybody.
Everybody, let's make sure everyone's sort of feeling comfortable. And certainly the visual Sue used here was the sort of the hands joining, the connection, the harmony. So final decision-making function is introverted feeling or valuing. Very, very different. Does anyone have introverted feeling as a dominant in here? That's okay. So this is a very personal and private decision-making system. It's about living life in alignment with, to get alignment between the internal values and the external world. And it's not as, the trouble with when people define the feeling preference, sometimes they describe it as very gushy. Extroverted feeling or harmonizing is gushy. Introverted feeling is not gushy. It's particularly as a dominant, as INFP or ISFP, it can look quite distant. It's about providing support in a caring way, and it's very tolerant of differences. I know in Dario and his work with both ISFPs and INFPs, the brain, there are certain activities that send each function's brain into the zone or into sort of a mode, and for INFPs it's listening. INFPs can genuinely listen, and that very safe listening that most people will feel comfortable talking to them. So dominant valuing is INFP and ISFP, and as an auxiliary it's ENFP and ESFP. So this isn't the one that's talking about how they're going to create connections. They just create connections and they make people feel safe and very tolerant of differences until the values are crossed, and then you see the pulling back. And this is our, again, our artists and improvisers, as well as our idealistic catalyst. So let me ask you this, has anybody here ever stopped doing business with a company because of something they've done that's crossed their values? Who said yes? Who, which organisation and why? Are you comfortable sharing that?
Talk. Atrocious. We can't go there.
And when you hear extroverted feeling sort of feel nice and warm and blah, 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 blah. And then when you go into introverted feeling, did you hear, what was the difference then in the way you talked? Did you hear the difference in her voice? What happened to her voice tone? Quiet and firm and less word. And that's often what can happen. Any other examples? So, and not lots of reasons why, but just awful. It's done.
I can think of a director and company that I worked with and did something that I just think is just irreproachable. And I could not even bear being in the same room as this anymore.
And what did you do?
I left.
And I often see it, particularly for INFPs and ESF, but all of those who have values are dominant or auxiliary, they're not going to say anything, they're just gone. You know, I worked with someone at Oracle who had preferences for ESFP, and he, Oracle is a very political company, and he was riding the waves, and could, wonderful improviser, I can make this work for me. And then they crossed his values, and he left the next day. It was just like, I'm gone.
So issues of forgiveness. Issues of
Forgiveness. Although you have to go an awful long way. There's a lot of tolerance before you have to get to forgiveness.
Unless you step down a value, then there's no tolerance.
Tolerance at all.
No.
And the challenge is you don't know what those values are, so you may tread on them without actually realising it, and you'll only realise it once you tread on them. And suddenly it's like, woo! I didn't realise. Yes. So again, if you've got systematizing, you've got valuing there somewhere, and vice versa. So again, we make decisions with one function in the external world and one function in the internal world. We have a thinking and a feeling preference. Same with this. If you've got harmonizing, you've got analyzing. If you've got analyzing, you've got harmonizing. And unfortunately for me, I've done a lot of work recently on standards about how we talk about type, and that's why it's so difficult. If you talk about thinkers and feelers and sensors and intuitors, I mean, I love Rob's product. For us as type professionals though, if we talk about it in that way, we infer that if you're one, you're not the other. I'm an intuitor, not a sensor, and we all have intuition, sensing, thinking, and feeling. It's just who's on first, really. So what might be the advantages of valuing?
You know where you stand.
You sort of know where you stand, yeah?
You're very strong internal compass, don't you?
Strong internal compass, I love that, it's a very nice phrase. Strong internal compass. And people will see the behavior but not necessarily know the origins from the compass. Very nice. Strong internal compass. What could be the disadvantages?
Well, speaking as one who's got it, I think it can make you intolerant. In a weird sort of way.
It can make you intolerant in a weird sort of way. Yes, some strange things you could be quite intolerant of. Yes. And we may not necessarily know those values, so we may tread on them without realising it. So, yes. What is alignment? Is that an important question? There's that sort of a ranking of importance.
And to who?
And to who? Yes. To who. And it's sort of like a tuning fork. It's like the pulse or the values, or I like the word compass. I'm going to look for compass, actually.
My husband will say, the world needs people like you.
Yeah, and I think within organisations, I mean, we really need people who use all of these functions because they each contribute unique elements to our world of work and our world at home.
I've heard introverted feelers say that they feel that organisations